Hey, everybody, welcome into Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. I am Coach Brad Gough, and this is a show where we're going to talk a little bit about last weekend's loss in the final home game of the regular season before turning our sights forward onto the regular season finale and the playoffs. FC Cincinnati strung their winless streak to 4 games on the spin, falling 3-1 at home to Orlando City. They fell behind early again, giving up a goal in just the 10th minute, but looked to be back in the match when Lucho Acosta tied the score at 1-1 before the break. However, after a bad mistake by Roman Celentano gifted Orlando the go-ahead goal, they quickly added a third, putting the game out of reach. That loss means FCC will finish third in the East regardless of the result in their final regular season match against Philadelphia. However, that match is a must-win if they want to be certain that they will qualify for CONCACAF Champions Cup next season. Instead of doing what we normally do and focusing entirely on the last match, we're going to look forward. We're going to ask what major takeaways we can hold on to from that last match, but more focus on what the team needs to do to get right for the playoffs and many more forward-looking questions. And we're going to talk about it all with the one and only Justin Hoyte. Justin, how you doing today, my friend?
Today I'm great, Coach. Today I'm great. The weekend I wasn't so good. I had a good weekend in London. Took my son to watch Arsenal, which was great. But disappointed with the Cincinnati result. We're talking all things FCC here. So today I'm great, but after Sunday I wasn't so good. But we're looking forward. We're looking ahead. The team's got a break. And it gives the time to recharge, Coach, and I guess it gives us time and the fans and listeners time to recharge, rethink how the season's gone, and put all our positive energy and vibes into the last game of the season. Then taking that energy and focus into the playoffs with the team, Coach. How are you doing? How's your week? How's your weekend? How's everything going with you?
Pretty much the same, man. This weekend was rough for me because I don't even have the luxury of being an Arsenal legend and getting a hero's welcome at the Emirates.
No, I wish.
Parade around the backstage areas of the stadium. I'm just kidding, but kind of not. Like your social media, it looks like a lot of fun. I'm glad you got that experience. Instead, Justin, I have the privilege and honor of being the fan of a team that I will not mention that plays over there somewhere near Arsenal that just capitulates and fritters away leads. And we're not going to get into that. Also, FCC lost. Also, my Bengals lost. It was a hard weekend.
Oh, no, yeah, it's terrible. Bengals lost. I'm upset about it as well.
I've recovered. We waited all the way until Thursday to record. We're recording here on Thursday afternoon Eastern time, Thursday evening London time. And the first thing I want to talk to you about, Justin, is international breaks. You have been part of a team that is either flying high or riding low and then hits this international break. And usually in international breaks, the teams get a couple days off, even if their players aren't playing internationally. What can that break do for a team that maybe is struggling and kind of licking their wounds coming off, let's say, 4 games without winning?
I would say it's come at a great time. Why I say that is because it gives you time to recharge, rethink, and put the results behind you, the performances behind you, and it really just gives you a break, gives you the time away from the club if you get a few days off, and it really then gets you to refocus on the next few tasks ahead. So I feel like if it was me, it would be perfect timing for an international break. And I guess for the players and for the staff and for the club, I think it comes at a great time. I feel now they've got a chance to be like, right, we've had this little break, we're recharged, everyone's fully fit. Let's go for it.
Justin, does it matter if you are a player who is staying local or if you're a player who gets to go play internationally? Because I see pluses and minuses to both. If you're going internationally, you can kind of put the club form behind you and focus on something new. But also you have to travel and there's really no rest.
That's
if you're
tough,
at home, you get to rest and recharge, but you're just sitting in that space, almost probably kind of wanting another game to come so you can get back to winning ways.
Yeah, it's. I've had both. So I've had it where I've been able to travel, different environment. International is completely different to club football. So I guess you get that aspect of it of coming away from club football, not thinking about having international games, which are just as tough, which is also tough on your body. Then having to travel, then coming back, then you're not getting that break that some of the other players have had. So that's tough. But it gives you a different mindset. It also keeps you fit because you're training at a higher level. You're playing against higher level players, so that keeps your, I would say, fitness up, keeps your game focus on, it gives your game mindset on, and it also gives you that little bit more experience. International experience is what's needed, I would say now, coming into the latter stage of the season, obviously going into the playoffs. Now, if you're a player that's sitting at home, you're kind of thinking, okay, maybe I've got 2-3 days off. What do I do? Do I sit and just, take a complete break? Or am I sitting there waiting to play again? I would be one that sits there thinking, you know what, I've got a break. Let me recharge my body. Let me recover, enjoy my time at home with my family, and just be raring to go when when you're next in, and to get the team back together again and be like, right, we've had a little break. I've had a little time on the couch, had my little rest. But you know what? That rest is over now. I'm ready to go. I'm fully rested, ready to go. How would you be, coach? As a coach, how would you take your break? Would you take that 3 days off? Would you take the 2 days off? Would you
I would
go
just
away?
spend
Would you sit at
an
home?
entire
Wait
time
to be back in?
watching film and dissecting the tactics and figuring out. No, I would probably try to get away a little
Sleepless
bit.
nights. Yeah.
But it's tough. Justin, we have a big show today. We're going to try to get it done in under an hour. I'm not sure if it's doable. But first, I want to let the listeners know that we are once again sponsored by Apollo Home. Give them a call if you have any HVAC, plumbing, or electrical needs. And before you do that, and while you have your phone out, head on over to the socials and give us a follow. I am at FC Cincinnati Tac Talk. He is at Justin Hoyte 32. And as always, you can drop us a note at Cincy Soccer Talk or in the electronic mail slots feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Let's hit the film room. All right, Justin, let's get right to it. First and foremost, we have to do the obligatory mention of the lineup from Saturday. I say obligatory because I swear Pat Noonan at this point is only going for that unbreakable record of starting a different lineup in every single match for the season, because right now FCC stands at 41 matches played, 41 different lineup combinations, Justin. In this one, we saw both Yuya Kubo and Luca Orishano head to the bench, and Teenage Hidebe get his second start on the bounce. And FCC actually looked pretty good to open. Like the first few minutes, lots of pressure, hard to the ball, not really those sloppy turnovers we've come to expect. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, they still went down to an early goal. So once again, Justin, we have to ask, early goals conceded. Do you think all the different lineups could be playing a part of this, or do you think it's just kind of some bad luck and some more unfortunate circumstances?
I would say bad luck, unfortunate circumstances. It is, a change of lineup. It's different personnel in different positions. Different, you're not getting that consistency playing with someone regularly. But if you look at the lineup and certain players, a lot of the players have played a lot of minutes, and they've played together in that position in other games. So yes, you are bringing, let's say, fresh players in different positions, different style of play of each person. Yes, the lineup is not, the starting 11 has not been the same, but personnel played in that position before. So you still have that understanding of, I know where I need to be in this position. I've played this position. I've played this position in this game. I've played this amount of minutes in this formation in this position. So they understand what's needed of them. Now having different personnel in there, different player profiles, I will call it, sometimes that's causing a mix-up. Attacking wise, that's causing a mix-up. But I still feel like conceding goals early on, I feel like that's maybe a lack of concentration and maybe still just mistakes. You've seen in this game, it is mistakes, and that's human nature. It's just unfortunate now that it just seems to be happening every game, and we're on the losing streak. And when you are losing, coach, as we know, nothing goes your way. So now if we're making mistakes now also, it's just not helping out, and it just does not helping. So, and now everyone's, head's probably going to be down, and we need to change that cycle with a victory.
And we'll talk about that with the first goal, Justin, because really the mistakes were small, but Orlando City makes a phenomenal play to punish them. So
Yeah,
I'm going to
100%.
describe it, and then I'll get your thoughts on it. It was in the 10th minute, and there's just a long ball from like the FCC right touch line towards the center of the back line. Miles wins it easily, but he kind of nods it down instead of heading it away. But it lands at the foot of Buka, so things should be good. Buka tries to one-touch back pass it, and it is blocked by a defender. The ball bounces out into the midfield, and Assad, who was pinched in from the left a bit more central because he's the weak side defender at that point, goes after it. The ball is pinged into Enrique at forward, who then one touches it out to the FCC left, where Assad is no longer there, to their right back, Kyle Smith. Smith pushes the ball forward and just whips in an unbelievable cross with enough texture to curve behind the FCC defense, but curl right into the path of Enrique, who had made a run forward. And then, still a lot to do there. Enrique makes a fantastic play to kind of volley or direct the ball in with his foot to the near post, and it's 1-0. Justin, really good play by Orlando. Also, some mistakes we can talk about, and we are tacticians. We're analyzing. So let's talk about what FCC could have done differently or better there.
Let's to start off with, I don't think Assad should go in there to win that ball. I think if he holds his position, I don't feel that ball is going to go into the striker. And even if the ball, I feel like Buka's got that covered if it goes into the striker. And I feel that Miles Robinson can go tight on the striker, or Hadebe can go tighter on the striker. If Assad doesn't go in there, I feel if Assad holds his position, then I don't feel that ball is going to be played forward. So that's where we're talking. That's the tactical side of it. I feel that's where the initial problem is. And then I guess once the ball goes to the striker and goes wide, yes, you are looking at stopping the cross. That's the main thing. But I mean, he does a great job to try and get there. I would say it's an unbelievable cross, but I still feel Miles has lost track of where the man is. I feel like if he opens his body just a tiny bit to know where the striker is, has his hand out to feel where the striker is, I feel that he'll make a better decision, and defensively he'll be able to might be just be able to get a little nick on it or a little interception to put that off guard, or maybe make an interception to clear that. But the striker can see his number on the back, and we've always been told as defenders, never let your striker see your back. So I feel if he opens his body just a tiny bit, I feel he might be able to stop that. But it's an unbelievable cross. He's tried his best, and it's
Justin,
great.
you're sharing my mind here because that's the exact notes that I had written down. Of course, Assad, I think so many defensive lapses come from not trusting your teammates. And if Assad trusts his teammates to close down that midfield,
he doesn't go in there.
It's his responsibility. All this is fine. I don't think the cross ever comes in so easily.
100%.
But the other thing is Miles' defensive technique is just off there. We talk about not letting, like you said, the defender or the attacker should not see your numbers, meaning that you are square to him facing away. Right? He needs to be goal side, ball side, which means if you draw a line between the attacker and the goalkeeper, you're a step closer to the goalkeeper. And then if you draw a line from the attacker to the ball, you're a step closer to the ball, but still touch tight. Miles, not touch tight. He's too far forward. So he is ball side, but he's not goal side, which means that when the ball goes past him with a really great cross, had to be perfect, but it was, it is scored too easily. But again,
he's square on.
Yeah,
and I feel if he wasn't square on, he opens his body. I feel like his feet would have been able to get him to get to the front post to not let that ball go there. If his body shape is a lot different, because you can move your feet a lot quicker. Being square on like that, when he turns to try and clear it, you can see his body shape's already wrong.
Yeah,
that's why he turns back to try and kick it. Yeah, that's the body position. That's where you can see where it's completely wrong.
This is what I love about doing the show with you, Justin, because I think that is the kind of note that like everyone listening to, if you're watching, even on goals that aren't scored, you can see when the defender wasn't quite right and be like, oh, that defender needs to fix that. If you're a coach, if you're a player, if you have a kid that's a player, show them this highlight and show them what Justin's talking about with a player being square on there and not being open to the player, right? Just a little bit of a turn. Let's get to the second goal because it's the game winner, and it came in the 66th minute. It starts with Orlando City having a lot of the ball. They're just moving the ball around kind of at will. They move the ball up the FCC right, so on their left. And the reason why that's important is because a midfielder for Orlando City makes a run in that half space on that side, and Buka is forced to pull out of the midfield to track that run. So they swing the ball back, and then centers to a wide open Muriel, who is the center forward there, dropped in the middle, standing behind Obi, but in front of Ian Murphy. And because Buka is out of the play, right? Murphy closes, but can't win the ball there. Muriel pivots and carries out toward the FCC left with Murphy chasing him, then plays a simple ball wide to that side to Kyle Smith again. Assad is in the area, but doesn't close him down very quickly. I think assuming there's not going to be a good cross from there. Kyle Smith whips in a cross. This time it's not as well good. It's not as good of a cross. It's toward Enrique. Miles is right on him, but Enrique is able to get that first touch and push it back towards his player Angulo. And then Angulo hits it on the volley. Doesn't hit it particularly well, but puts it on frame, bouncing, and it finds a way under Celentano's hands and into the net. Now, Justin, obviously, Roman has to do better there. If we were going to assign blame, like percentage-wise, I would give him the bulk of it. But we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about it, like, again, analytically. So what went wrong leading up to that shot, Justin?
Because I think it's a tough one. I'll just say, I feel like they've got everything right. You forced to play wide. I feel you just have to stop the cross. And then once the crosses come in, I feel like it's not a great cross. We'll be honest, it's not a great cross. And it's just hit on the edge of the box and someone's there. I just feel that positioning-wise, they're okay. I just feel like it's just a mistake from the goalkeeper. I don't know. I don't know if you see something else, but I don't think there's anything else they could have really done, if I'll be honest, Coach.
Well, I would say two things. And these are small things because you could say they did enough to force not a great shot. And it's a goalkeeper mistake. Those happen. But I would say two things. Number one, with Buka getting pulled out of the play, I think if Obi recognizes that and drops more into the middle, or if Ian Murphy, because you see Ian sitting there in between marking Enrique and Muriel, who's dropped in. If Ian gives Obi a shout, hey, left shoulder, drop left shoulder, and Obi takes 2-3 steps back in that direction, that pass into Muriel is already eliminated, which kind of starts that play with the defense having to shift. And then from there, when the cross is coming in, if you watch Buka and Obi, they're both recovering back to the box, seemingly unaware of where the Orlando players are. You know, they're just like, oh, back to the middle. They're ball watching. They like if either of them mark up Angulo, who's sitting at the top of the box instead of just running straight back towards the goal, they are able to maybe block that shot or keep him from getting that first touch at all. Little things, like I said, but I do see both of those. And I think that if they weren't ball watching, then it could have been prevented. Like all goals can be prevented. You know, we used to tell goalkeepers when I was a coach, you know, like when they made bad mistakes, like, hey, certainly you need to do better, but keep in mind, a lot of things had to go wrong for a person to even get a shot on goal. And as a team, our goal is to have them not get shots on target, right? So if you're letting shots on target, you're already doing something wrong as a defense. Speaking of shots on target, I'm not even sure if you would count this third one as a shot since he got basically dribbled into the back of the net, but Orlando City poured salt in our wounds in the 72nd minute. They were in possession. They send a ball towards Facundo Torres in the midfield. Yedlin closes on him hard, so he just flicks it into the channel, hoping that Angulo can run onto it. Orishano is in good defensive position there, so wins it easily, but because Angulo was there, he's under pressure. He tries to play it back to Roman, gets it hopelessly wrong, basically just sends Angulo in on goal, who squares it for Enrique to walk into an empty net. The only tactical question I have here at all, Justin, and I really don't know where I stand on this, is the mistake happened, right? It happened. Do you fault Miles Robinson at all for completely stopping his run and just assuming Luca Orishano, even though it's only him back there, is going to get everything exactly right? As a defender, do you think, like, man, it is too hard to stay mentally tuned in to that extent where you can expect the worst to happen all the time and track Enrique and I give Miles a pass? Or do you think, like, yeah, ideally he would not have just stopped and let Enrique run in there and just assumed that Luca Orishano was going to do the right thing?
Do you know what he's done here, Coach? He's trusted Orishano to play it back to the goalkeeper.
Using my words against me, Justin.
But that's the truth. He's probably thought, I saw Orishano here. I'll trust him to give the ball back to the goalkeeper. That's where we've got the trust. But like now it's like, right, I trust you to get it back to the goalkeeper, but I still need to defensively do my duty and do my job, because if he doesn't, I need to make sure I'm there, defensively. So I think defensive minded, you still have to be like, what happens? But naturally, as a defender, when you trust someone, I think, all right, so Ashano, I feel like I'm safe. But no matter what happens, coach, as a defender, if it's higher up the pitch, you can relax. But I feel in these situations, especially when you've got a man right next to you, I feel you have to track him no matter what happens, like last resort. And I feel like if that was to happen next game, I feel Robinson would do exactly the same thing. I feel like he would track him, he wouldn't stop, just in case.
Yeah, I give him mostly a pass, but I'm with you there. I think the thing is with Luca Orashano back there, it's like if he gets the back pass, if he chooses to make the back pass and gets it right, it's a non-issue. But I feel like with
Yeah,
Luca, there's like a 50% chance that he doesn't even choose that back pass and that he tries to dribble out of pressure. And if that's the case, you need
100%.
to be
Yeah.
back there anyway in case he gets the pocket picked.
Yeah.
So, again, we're talking about small things, but when you're losing at this rate, you got to do more small things right. FCC did get a goal that tied it at 1-1 momentarily, so we can talk a bit about that to a little bit of positivity. The ball's in the right half space in the attacking third at Obi's feet, and FCC looked kind of stagnant. There's not a lot of runners if you watch that play. Then Assad decides to check in from the left corner of the box into the middle, and Obi makes a really nice pass towards him. Assad dummies it and lets it run through. And I don't know if Assad knew that Hadebe was going to make that run or if he was just hoping, but
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Hadebe runs forward from left center back onto it. Lucho makes a really clever run here. He acts like he's going to dart into the box, and then he checks out of that run to the top of the 18, and Hadebe reads it and squares it to him. And then again, this is kind of a play out of nothing because there's no movement in front of him. Everybody does this thing with Lucho when he has the ball where they quit running, other than to maybe show to him. They take a few steps towards him, thinking if he passes the ball, he's going to want a quick combination. So nobody makes any darting runs, but luckily, Lucho pulls a rabbit out of his hat, puts the ball out of his feet, and just whips a shot in with enough grip to get in at the near post. Justin, we talk about the defense on FCC a lot when you analyze goals. I'm wondering here, is this a case from a defensive perspective? If you were doing an Orlando City podcast and talking about what they did wrong, did they do anything wrong here? Or did FCC do anything right to pull them apart? Or was this just a moment of brilliance that you're not going to be able to stop as a defense when Lucho hits that shot?
No, I'd just say I would say it's a moment of brilliance from Lucho. Although looking at it, if you're from a defensive point of view, if this was flipped around and it was, talking about Cincinnati defending, I would say when you got someone like Lucho, you can't let him turn like that. And as soon as he's got his head down to the ball, you just have to close it because he's either going to shoot or pick a pass. So I feel like you have to apply as much pressure to him as quickly as you can. So as soon as that ball's got to his feet, you have to apply pressure. And I feel that's the same if Cincinnati play against a number 10 who's creative like Lucho is. If you play against like a Messi, you have to get close to these kind of players because out of nothing, they can put the ball in the top corner without you even expecting it. So I feel like you need to apply pressure as soon as you can. But I'm glad Orlando didn't because we scored a goal.
And that's the thing actually that worries me about this is that it was a great goal and a brilliant shot, but it doesn't feel repeatable because FCC didn't do anything to create space for Lucho. It literally was, Orlando didn't step to him and he made a great play. We're not seeing FCC move the ball and create chances like they do when they're at their best. And that is one of the things that worries me. But we'll get to that. We're going to fix this team, Justin. But first, let's end the segment talking about Orlando City, talking about big takeaways from this match. And let's first focus on the positive. First off, for me, this team seemed so much more active and aggressive this match. Obi was flying around the midfield. The team upped the pressure from what we've seen in the last few matches. They were better in seemingly every statistical category than prior matches. Once you take that line, when they crushed Miami at home, the 6-1, everything after that's been pretty bad. But in this match, they had better shot creating actions, more progressive carries, better take-ons, more progressive receptions, more tackles, better in all those categories. But those are stats, Justin. What about the eye test for you? Did it seem like FCC played better overall, even though the scoreline didn't reflect it?
Yeah, I thought they played a lot better. I just feel that the mistakes cost us the games, and in soccer, you make mistakes like that against a team that's on fire, that a team that's technically playing well. in an Orlando side, and they punish you, and then it's hard to try and get back. I mean, it was 1-1 for a certain time, but I feel the team played a lot better. And if it wasn't for the mistakes, coach, I feel like the team either would have got a victory or drawn. But unfortunately, the mistakes were there. So I still feel that the team performed a lot better in this game, which is a great sign, I would
I
say.
think so too. And that's the thing is like if they can keep playing like this, goals change games. And that goal that Roman
100%.
Salentano allowed, that big mistake, the goal that Luca Orshano allowed, like those are two big mistakes outside of the little mistake that led to the first goal, right? So those two big mistakes are like cost this game, right? Without those
Cost you
two
the game, yeah, of course, yeah.
draw. And you could even argue with how well FCUC was playing without that Roman Salentano mistake when it was tied at 1-1, maybe FCC even go on and get the win. So the positive there is they played well enough to win if they can eliminate those mistakes. Obviously, the negative is they have to eliminate the mistakes. Justin, another big takeaway for me was I thought how good Buka looked, finally getting back to being
Back
more
to what it was.
active in possession. We see him get a lot of touches and move the ball, but finally he was getting into the attacking third. In the 33rd minute, he gets into the box for Assad to cross to him, kind of like a pass along the floor, but a long one. And he opens his hips and can't quite steer the ball in at the far post. That was FCC's best chance of the day in terms of expected goals. In the 39th minute, 6 minutes later, Orlando City turned the ball over, and it leaves to Lucho having space up the left side. Buka makes a run forward into the box, and I think really intelligently drifts to the back post where there's space. Lucho picks him out with a cross, but he just misses the volley, which was FCC's second best chance of the night based on XG. He received more progressive passes, had more touches in the penalty area. He created 4 shots. Justin, I think if FCC is going to be successful in the playoffs, that there has to be a secondary chance creator and or goal scorer
100%.
out of midfield, somebody beyond Luca Orshano. And it's not going to be Obi. Do you agree with me on that? And can that guy be Buka?
I do. I feel it can be Buka, but what's happening is I feel like we're going under the radar a bit with Kubo is not. I feel like he's in the games, but he's not as effective as he was earlier on in the season. For whatever reason, we don't know. But I feel like Buka needs to be that person now in midfield who right, this I'm gonna help Luca, I'm gonna help Lucho, I'm gonna help Orishano, and I'm gonna be that midfield anchor who creates things, who gets the ball forward, who gets on the ball, plays forward passes, keeps the ball ticking. And we've seen him do it in games, but now we need to see it more often. And I feel like we need something else other than Lucho and Orishano, especially in the midfield area, because as we know, games are won and lost in the central areas.
Yeah, and it stinks that the 2 best chances of the matches fall to a young number 8 as opposed to a 10 or a 9, even a winger. But they did, and I think those are spots that if Buka can finish even one of those, like we said, goals change games, and I think he has the ability to finish those. So I think that's a positive sign, a good takeaway that Buka can be a positive force offensively. So those were some positive takeaways. I don't want to call these next ones negative takeaways, but I think they are what I will call learning opportunities for the team.
Yeah.
First one for me is coming out of this game, it has just re-solidified even more deeply that I don't think Pat Noonan can rely on Nico Gioacchini as a starter heading into the playoffs. He was mostly absent once again. He played 72 minutes and had 24 touches. That's not great, but it's fine. Only 1 shot creating action. 0 shots on target himself, 0 expected goals. He did receive 7 progressive passes and drew 3 fouls, so it's not nothing. But again, those are stats, Justin. I'm wondering, eye test, is Nico doing enough for you to justify being even in pencil on the starting lineup as a starting option, or should he be for this last match in the playoffs? Should he be strictly a bench option for you?
I mean, we look at how many games he's played, how effective has he been. As I see it, with how the team's performing, we need to see more of him in the attacking third. We need to see more chances created. We need to see more shots on goals, just a bit more from him in the final third, I would say. to help this team go forward. Would I pencil him in as a starter? I would say no. And why I say that is because I feel you'll get more out of having Kubo and probably Orishano and Lucho as the front three. And I'll be honest with you, that's how I feel that, we would be more effective with probably Assad on the left and Yedlin on the right. That's how I would see it. So for me, I really feel that we need to see, if he's going to play the next game, we need to see a lot more from him than we have been. He's not been bad, but I feel like at this time, we need someone in that attacking third who's going to be, like we say, someone else who can create something. If it's not going to be Lucho, who is going to be that person?
Yeah.
We need someone else further forward who can create something or score some goals. That's what we need. That's what we're missing.
Yeah, and we have a question later about strikers' strengths and weaknesses, so we'll talk more about Nico there. I'm just saying, for me, and I've said it before, I'll just keep saying, for me, it's solidified. I don't think he can be a starter for this team. He's not doing enough, and you don't have any more games to be like, let's see if we can find a rhythm. You got to win.
You have to win now.
I would not start him. The last big takeaway from me is that this team has got to fix Lucho Acosta. Without boring you by reading a bunch of stats again, Justin, here's what I'll say.
It's hard with Lucho, man.
Lucho has significantly fewer touches overall, but the same number of attacking third touches. So he averages a lot more touches than he's been getting, but he's getting the same number of attacking third touches. He has basically the same passing percentage as he's had all year, but fewer shot creating actions over the last 6 matches. He's attempted significantly fewer dribbles. He's had way fewer successful dribbles, and not just because he's attempted fewer, but he's actually getting dispossessed more often. So to me, Justin, that indicates a player who isn't finding himself in enough space, right? He's probably he's not as active in the middle third of the field, so he's getting touches only in the attacking third, which means when he's attempting dribbles, it's in a lot tighter space and against better defenders. During the last Wooden Spoon winning season, Justin, we talked a lot about getting Lucho on the ball higher up the field because he was dropping in so frequently. To me, whether it's because of his injury or a tactical setup, he swung too far in the other direction. Now he's hanging up too much up top, wanting those direct passes into his feet, and he's not finding himself in enough space. How do you think this team can get Lucho back to his best, Justin?
I feel we also need to see, coach. I think we need someone who's up top who can stretch the pitch. We've seen a lot when we've been able to stretch the field. Lucho's been able to get into them areas. We've seen it over the past few games. I heard the commentators say when they've got no one to run in behind. When you can't have got no one to run in behind, the defense sit in a block, the midfield sit in a block, and Lucho can't operate. He has to drop deeper and deeper and deeper. But what we're finding is he's not dropping deeper, he's dropping further forward and just hanging up there. So now that's taking a player out. Now it's putting one of the other strikers having to drop deep to now do his job because he wants to be further up forward. That's where he wants to be. He wants to operate higher up. He doesn't want to drop deep because it's too far for him to run to create stuff. And then when you're further deep, So for me, coach, you need someone to run in behind, stretch the field, then he can operate. Other than that, I just really just needs to. I don't know. I don't know if he's 100%. I'll be honest. I don't know if he's 100%. Just looking at him, looking at his body language and how he is around the field, I don't feel he's 100%. But we have to have him on the field, coach. There's no ifs or buts about it. We have to have him on the pitch. I
think you are so dead on here, Justin, with that idea of stretching the field. I would only add one thing. I talked about a little bit earlier how players do this thing with Lucho where whenever he has the ball, they only run towards him. And it's because he's so good at combining and they want to be part of it.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But FCC needs to find some players that will do the thankless job, and it will be thankless because Lucho probably will not pass it to you, of running away from Lucho, right?
Yeah, but sometimes they're the best. Sometimes that's the best play, though, coach. If you run away, that's a selfish run. That creates space for other people, and then people can drop deep, and it'll stretch the defense. Then they can operate short.
And this is what I think Santos does so well. Santos does those runs where he runs across the back.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
pulls in behind and pulls defense. Okay. And if you're running away from Lucho, if you're stretching the field, that will give him more space. And then the other thing I will add is I think Pat Noonan needs to emphasize getting the ball to Lucho with fewer direct passes. And this is what I mean. I think less often it should be Buka looking up and passing forward to Lucho to then dribble. I think it needs to be going past Lucho into like Big Kev or somebody and then being knocked down underneath the Lucho.
Setback, yeah, of course, yeah.
Or maybe even it's like where Obi or Buka stretches wide and that ball goes from like Miles Robinson wide to Obi, who then touches it into Lucho. But that changing the angle of how Lucho is receiving the ball, I think could also help. But I think if players don't start stretching the field around Lucho and running away from him and giving him space, I think it's going to be just tough sledding.
Yeah,
and I think it's an easy switch. It's literally talking to these guys. You have Kubo, Nico, Santos, guys who are willing to run and want to do it. You just have to tell them, hey, one of you check towards Lucho. The other one, I don't care if you run to go say hello to the fans in the corner. Run away. Run away. Justin, next we're going to focus forward on the finale and the postseason. But first, I want to let everyone know about our other show sponsor, Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. In fact, they help the local MLS, MLS Next, and FCC Academy players, some of them, with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. All right, Justin, this next segment starts with a question from Mike Prentice, who wants to know, are any of the many and growing flaws in this team fixable for the playoffs? The answer is yes. Moving on. I'm just kidding. Justin, I have a list of flaws here that I want to talk about, and then I want to talk about, are they fixable and how? Pretty straightforward, okay? So the first one I have is giving up early goals. Justin,
Fixable.
Is this fixable? And if so, what would you do to fix it? One big thing.
Play simple, keep things easy. I'd say keep things simple and just focus on not making any errors early on in the game and play on the front foot. So it is fixable.
Yeah.
So that's an easy option for me. I'd say it's fixable. For you, Coach, fixable?
I agree. I think fixable. I took a little bit of a different slant. I think playing simpler could be one way. Or playing to start a little bit less possession, play a little bit direct and high pressure for like the first 10 minutes of the match.
That will stretch the field.
But I think another thing the coaching staff could try is changing up the pre-match routine a little bit. Maybe it was Matt Miazga giving those speeches in the huddle right before kickoff. Maybe now it's Lucho. I don't know who it is, but maybe change it up. Yeah. Find someone else to do it. It's a little late in the game to experiment, so you have to try to get it right, but I think you're probably closer to correct when we say play simpler, whether that means just keeping the ball and knocking it around, or maybe that means just playing a bit of long ball to start the game and just try to run in behind and see if we can get a lucky
running behind
for us, field, yeah. And as well as not making bad turnovers because we're playing long.
Yeah, true.
Second growing problem is an out-of-form Lucho Acosta. We already talked about this a little bit, but Justin, I want to know, fixable or not? And if so, how would you go about fixing it? One big idea.
But let's have a think about it, Coach. Is he out of form or is he just not, is he out of form? Because he's still scoring and he's still creating chances. So is he technically out of form? That's my question. Is he out of form or is it everyone around him is not on his wavelength at the moment? Or is he not happy with how the attack is going at the minute? So he looks like he's out of form. That's the question, Coach, because he's creating assists and he's still scoring. So is he out of form? Or let's put it this way, Coach. Do we think he's 100% or is he 75 to 50%? I think that's a better way of saying it. I think he's in form, but is he 75 to 50%? Like, he's not 100% fit, let's be honest.
So if that's the case, I would say you're saying not fixable, because if he is still a little bit hurt, that's just going to take time and that's not really fixable. I would say if this is fixable, it's Lucho that has to be the one to fix it, whether it's out of form or whether it's out of fitness. Lucho has got to find that confidence and swagger and get his attitude right. He's got to quit throwing his hands up every time he doesn't get a pass. Here's another interesting question. This one came from BTB and wants to know what to do when multiple of the most important players are out of form. Do you sit them or play through it? So this applies to Justin, but you could say Nico is out of form. You can make an argument that Miles has been playing great lately. Several players. Justin, you've seen guys go through slumps and come out of them. You've I don't think you've ever been in a slump, but I'm sure you've seen this from afar.
I have many times, yeah, but
What
yeah.
do you think works best overall?
Sometimes resting or giving a player a game or two off sometimes helps you, helps the team and helps you to watch a minute and be like, right, I'm ready to come back into the game. I'm ready to come back in the game. So I would feel even if you're bench, sometimes it gives you a little kick to be like, oh, sugar, I'm not performing. I need to up my game a little bit. I need to work harder in training. So I feel sometimes coming away from it and making a substitute, making a change and putting you on the side sometimes does give you a kick
Yeah,
and
I would
does make you be
say
like, right, now I need to fix up.
Yeah, I would say as a coach, it just really depends on the player. You have to know which of the players you can set, and it's not going to hurt their confidence. You have to know which players
Especially,
you trust to play themselves into form, and
mhm,
who needs a rest. You need to know which players you can really motivate by putting on the bench and being like, you have to earn your spot back, and which of them that will fire
yeah,
up, and who that would, damage. Um, Let's get on to the next problem that I have. Third is this team is not creating enough chances, Justin. They are
no,
third in the
no,
East on points. But if you went just based on goals scored, they would be fifth. And if you went just based on XG, or the chances and quality of chances that you're creating, they would be
your
ninth.
favorite set.
To put it simpler, FCC is not creating as many scoring chances
No,
as the teams around them in the table. Justin,
no.
same question. Fixable? And if so, how?
I feel it's fixable, but I feel you have to change personnel. Um, that's how it'll be fixable. And how I say that is, I feel like I said, I feel if you have a Kubo or a Sean or Lucho, I feel you'll create more chances than the front three we had in the last game. I'll just be honest. Even Santos, I feel if he come in, um, would create more chances. But I feel that this has been going on for a little while now, coach, hasn't it? It's not just been the last game. I feel like it's been the last. I don't even know. We've been lost 4 games. I feel like it's been the last 5 or 6 games. We've not created a lot of chances. So it is fixable, but how quickly can it be fixed? That's the question. But it can be fixed.
Well, and I'll add
But I
another
just think
one
we have to
then.
change personnel.
I will add another option in. What about don't even try to fix it? What about saying we're third in the East with already having these other problems? Maybe reinvest in the defense and just say we're going to create one or two golden chances. We have Lucho Acosta and Luca Orashano.
Yeah, that's true.
That's going
Yeah,
to
we need
happen.
to squeeze one anyway.
Yeah, maybe don't give away as many goals.
Yeah, it's true.
That's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
problem to focus on. But
But the only thing is,
another
the only
problem.
thing after that, coach, go on, is that do you know if you're creating a lot of chances, I feel like your defense have a rest
Yeah.
and they get a break, and you're always on the front foot and you're attacking, so the defense get a break. When you're not creating a lot of chances and the opposition are getting chance after chance and the ball's coming back and back and back, it's hard for the defense. I'm a defender, so I know what it's like. It's just as hard. So you're having to go at the striker saying, come on, like, let's put these chances away. Let's get more chances, because I feel if you're getting a lot of chances in games, you're normally on the front foot and you're normally dominating games. When you're not, you're normally defending a lot, and sometimes you can see goals, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's true. And that's actually like you're speaking my language. My coaching philosophy was always, go press high and hard. And if we give up one on the back end, we'll score two to make
Yeah,
up
that's,
for
that's
it.
my
But,
philosophy.
speaking of giving up goals, though, the last problem that I have here listed amongst the growing concerns is Roman Celentano, because Justin, he has played in 29 matches. In
Mm,
15 of them, so about half, he's been
mhm,
a net neutral or better in terms of shot stopping. So only in half. That
mm.
means in 14 of them, he's giving up more goals than would be expected. But here's the kicker on that: the first 9 matches of the season, he was a net positive. So that
Mm.
means the last 20 matches, Roman has underperformed expectations in 14 of them. So he started out well, and then he has just plummeted over the back half of the season.
Concentration.
Justin, fixable?
No, I think it's fixable. I think it's just concentration. Sometimes players, you don't know what's going on in their mind or whatever, not or how they're feeling in games, or what's going on within their situation. So, is it mentally? Is it his focus is somewhere else? Is it, I don't know. I would say it's concentration. Now that is fixable. He is a good goalkeeper. He's shown that early on. Now, you have to help him now and guide him as a team, as players, and you have to put an arm around him. I feel at the minute you have to put an arm around him and say, look, okay, you made a mistake. You've made one or two mistakes recently, but that's, put that behind you. Look what you done at the start of the season. Look what you done the previous season, and let's get going again. Is it now? Is he seeing it differently, not having Matt there? Is that now lost his focus? Is he now, having to step up to the plate, like we say, be more vocal, be more dominant, when probably when you had Matt or you had Hagen, he didn't have to be that person, but probably now in the defense, he needs to be. Is that putting more pressure on him than he wants? I feel we have to look at that, but I think it's fixable for the remainder of the season. I think it's fixable.
Yeah,
Long term, it's fixable.
Clearly it's fixable long term because we've seen him do it, so we know he can. Here's my question for you. Quickly. When you are playing in front of a goalkeeper who is, let's just say, we're not saying this is Roman, but just theoretically, let's say this goalkeeper is league average or maybe even a little bit worse than league average, and you know that he's not going to be a match winner. As a defender, do you change the way you play?
I would change the way I played to be more defensive minded, just so that we're not putting more pressure on the goalkeeper. Because you look at things like this now, what's going to happen? I mean, I don't know it, but normally what happens if I was looking at the tapes of the games, I'll be like, right, let's put more pressure on the goalkeeper. Let's take more shots at the goalkeeper. Let's get around him. Let's make it uncomfortable for him, and let's see how he reacts to it. He's either going to react to it in a positive way or he's going to react to it into a negative way. Can we get under his skin by doing certain things? And I feel people watch film, so they're going to try it. They're going to try shooting from different angles and different places because, they know that what happened last game. Now, is that still going to play on its mind? We don't know. So now as a defense, you now have to take that into consideration. And yes, you are going to have to defend different just because, you don't know how the goalkeeper's going to, how he's going to react to it. So I feel me as a player, I would have to help and defend a different way just to take a little bit more pressure off my goalkeeper.
Yeah, and I think that's really a good observation because some of these defensive things that we see with guys trying to overcompensate or not playing as well or like they normally would could be that little bit of a worry. So collectively, this is something they can fix. Our next question comes from our new producer, Mike Sletson, who says he's been telling people that the problem with this team isn't just losing the reigning defender of the year, Matt Miazga. He thinks that Obi and Buka are not on the same page and that Obi is where our attack goes to die. He wants to know if this is accurate or he's way off base. Justin, we talked about the Orlando City game winner and how I thought Obi and Buka were just doing their own thing, kind of unaware of where the other one was. With these two, when it looks bad, it can look really bad because Obi
terrible.
And he goes and tries to win the ball at all costs. He is completely positionally unaware. And when Buka is not sitting back and just trying to adapt to that, like Junior Moreno did, just trying to plug up the holes that Obi leaves, things can get ugly. But also, when it looks good, it can look really good because Obi is flying around, winning tackles, winning second balls, starting counterattacks. Buka, as we talked about, is getting forward into the attack and getting scoring chances. Do you think, like producer Mike, that this midfield is struggling, Justin? Or is this just kind of some of the lumps you take with these players playing the way that they are meant to play?
What I see is that teams are finding out a way now to attack and cause Cincinnati problems in their shape. And why I say that is because I feel like what's happening is the teams are playing on one side of the field, putting a certain number of players on one side of the field. Obi and Buka are both going over to help out and defend. And what's happening is the far side, either wing back or full back, is pushing into the space, and the space is open. and they're able to then switch to play quickly and attack down that side. Now, what is happening is now we're getting the wing backs coming in to do the centre midfielders' job when they don't need to. So it also looks bad on the centre midfielders because everyone's like, well, why are the midfielders not there? They're not doing their job. They technically are doing their job, but the wing backs are coming in, don't need to, because positionally the centre midfielders have got their job. They know what they're doing. But now they're then getting the ball wide and they're getting overrun and it's just not working. So I feel shape-wise, they need to look at that more often. And I feel like they need to look at not getting Buka and Obi both on the same side. And I feel they need that communication. And I feel someone from behind, maybe be a Miles or Alves. Murphy's not very vocal. We don't know. But I feel we need someone who's behind them to keep them on a piece of string together and get them working together. Because we've seen, Coach, when it works well, it's great. But when it doesn't, it's just all over the place. And you say it's a disaster, Coach. We have to admit. But when they get it right, we're hard to defeat. But, as a coach, how would you fix that? Who would you be the person to fix that? Would it be the central midfield players? Would it be the defenders? Would you pull them together and ask them why it's not working? How do they feel about it? How do they feel? Do they feel they're getting overrun? How would you see it as a coach?
It's funny, Justin, that you say that. You said keep them on a string, because I remember very distinctly I would have players who were really positionally aware, high soccer IQ, and I would have players that were really athletic, but maybe not as high of a soccer IQ, or maybe they're really smart players, but their athleticism leads them to try to do things maybe they shouldn't. And the number of times I would just be on the sideline yelling to my positionally aware players, keep her on a rope, because
I have to do that to Manu sometimes,
where she belongs. So I agree with that completely. I wonder if some of this isn't a center back problem. When you play with 3 center backs, and you're only playing against 1 forward, maybe 2 forwards, that extra center back has more to do than just hang out in space. They need to push into the midfield at times. And I think so often this team plays with their 3 center backs as if they only have 2. That goal that we talked about, the second Orlando City goal, the one where Roman made a mistake, where Muriel was sitting in the midfield. You see Ian Murphy marking Romero Enrique and Muriel. Those are the 2 forwards. And you see Ian Murphy kind of trying to spin. So when the ball goes to Muriel, he then goes and closes down and is a little late, allows Muriel to spin out. If Ian Murphy can just pull Miles back and be like, Miles, you can't be just an extra defender floating. Step back on Enrique and allow me to push up on Muriel because there's not a midfielder here, right? Then that can be solved. Then he doesn't have to push all the way into midfield. He just needs to be a step or 2 closer so he can close quicker. But instead he plays. If he was in a 2 center back pairing there, he might have both of those guys because the other center back is on the ball side watching, a midfielder running through or something. But as it is, Miles is just a free player out there, but he shifts over as if he's in a back 4 instead of a back 3, and it leaves Murphy with too much to do. And there's just an extra player that is out there for FCC that is not doing a lot defensively. And that, to me, is a fixable problem because it's a minor structural thing. You just got to get the guys communicating better. In terms of Obi being where the offense goes to die, the one thing I'll say about that, producer Mike, is that he is not really different this year in the stats than he has ever been. He keeps the ball really well, turns it over very infrequently, doesn't ever do anything a lot offensively in terms of progressing the ball, key passes, shots, but he can effectively keep the ball moving. We talked about the play that led to Lucho's goal, where he is the one who makes that pass in. He can do those things. The big problem with Obi this year is the few turnovers he has had. Some of them have been really bad turnovers that have led directly to goals.
They've been terrible,
And I think some of that is a little bit of circumstance. I don't want to say bad luck because it's a mistake, but it's a circumstance that turnover cost the team, whereas last year maybe Obi's turnovers didn't cost the team as much.
Yeah, it did cost the team,
That I think is something that kind of evens out over time, and I think that, for lack of better terms, that Obi has had a bit of a run of bad luck. Last question in this segment comes from Kimi to the Moon, Justin. who wants us to talk about each striker, what they do well and what they don't do well, and then find out what pair should start in a do or die must-win game. So I'm going to spend a minute and run through the strikers' strengths and weaknesses. If you have anything to add, just jump in and add, and then we'll talk about who we would start. So I'm going to start with Yuya Kubo. I think his strengths are his movement, his touch in tight spaces, and his balance when he receives on the ball, kind of like carrying the ball through tackles and things. I think his weaknesses is that he's inconsistent. He floats in and out of games, and that he doesn't have a great final pass. He doesn't get a lot of assists, a lot of key passes, that sort of a thing. Sergio Santos, strengths, speed, strength, effort, and actually, surprisingly, shot creation. He creates a lot of shots for others, for himself. He does a really good job of that. Weaknesses, unfortunately, he is not a good finisher. Even when he's creating shots for himself, for the number of shots that he has, he doesn't score a lot of goals because he's such a good shot creator. Also, he's also inconsistent. I think some of that is his stamina. He doesn't last through games. And then he is not a good dribbler. If you ask him to dribble in space, to dribble 1v1 in on goal, he is not good at moving the ball on the dribble.
He's not built for that,
Big Kev, strength, size, strength, his hold-up play. He's got really good touch, good footwork. He's actually a really good finisher when he manages to get shots off that aren't blocked. He also has really good effort, like in making runs defensively. His weaknesses is he doesn't get a lot of shots off because he's very left-footed. He will refuse to shoot with his right foot, which means a lot of his shots get blocked. He's also not a great shot creator for himself or others. He's not making that final pass. He's not dribbling to create shots. He really needs to have that ball laid into him where he can just stride into it and hit it. And then even though he's a hard worker, he doesn't actually add value defense. He's not a great presser. Nico, strengths, actually really good pressers. He has high defensive value. He hasn't really showed that for this team, but I'm talking about over the course of his career. He's got a great touch, good balance. He's really good with his link-up play, like dropping into midfield. His weaknesses are being a striker. I hate to say that, Justin, but like he's not good at shooting or creating shots. He's not good at finishing. He doesn't generate assists. All those things that you're like, you want a striker to do. If he was a midfielder with his talent, we'd be like, yeah, he's a good player. He's not good at being the striker, and he hasn't been. Over the course of his whole career, he hasn't been. And then lastly, Corey Baird. Really similar to Nico. Strengths, passing, link-up play. He's actually really good at shot creation, though, but not for himself. He's setting others up. He's more of a chance creator. And then he has good defensive value. And then his weaknesses, very similar to Nico. The striker stuff, he's not a good finisher. He doesn't get enough shots for himself. He's not great at receiving progressive passes. So, Justin, first, did I miss anything major there with any players that you want to add? And then second, who in a must-win game are you starting up top?
Is that providing we're not putting Orishano as a striker? Is he going to play wing back? Is that
you can say Orishano? You can put Orishano up top in a must-win game if that's what you're doing.
I feel in a must-win game, I would say as a front three, I would have Kubo, Orishano, and Lucho.
Yeah. Back to that.
Why I say that is because I feel that Lucho and Orishano have that link-up play. I feel Kubo can stretch the field and also gets in the box. The only thing is they're not natural strikers. And I don't feel in the team we have at the minute, yes, Big Kev is a striker, but is he the natural finisher like a Vasquez was, like Brenner was? No. But he's got the ability to do that. He's still young. He's still learning his trade, so he's still learning. But as strikers, we need to see more from them. But as a front three, if he was to put Orishano as a wing back, I would say we have to start Big Kev, Kubo, and Lucho.
Yeah.
Who would you start as a front as a striker? All right, well, it's provided we play three strikers, coach.
Yeah,
we might just play one.
I like your idea, Justin. Actually, that's not what I had down. I had down Kubo and Big Kev. Because looking at this list, I was thinking Santos is better as a sub. Nico and Baird have not shown me enough. I mean, Baird is basically Nico, but maybe not quite as good. So it's got to be Kubo and Kev. But I actually think that you're right. I think that depending on the game, Big Kev with Lucho and Kubo, or Lucho and Luca underneath him, or Kubo with Lucho and Luca under him, I think those are really good options. And I think people say like it's the sword and it hasn't worked since that Miami game. One, we haven't had the consistency of rolling that up. And two, the thing we talked about early in this episode is if you do that, you have to make darn sure that if, say, it's Kubo, Luca, and Lucho, you have to make darn sure that when Lucho has the ball, that Luca and Kubo don't both check to him all the time.
100%.
Got to get one of those guys running behind at all times, stretching the field, floating wide, creating space. And if you can do that, I think that's a really, really good lineup. Kubo or Big Kev, Lucho, Luca, or Kubo, depending on the game. I love that, and I think that's what we're going to run. All right, Justin. Before we get to the mailbag, I want to take a minute to thank all of our incredible supporters for downloading today's episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you for continuing to download or watch online or listen online on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. Thanks in advance for spreading the word. Please continue to do so. Tell a friend, tweet about us, put us in your Insta story, all the things. It really does help. And you can head on over to rate and review the show at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/coach Apple Podcasts. If you want to be a supporter of CST, we would really love that as well. That's at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. In terms of talking tactics, this show, send us your questions, your topics about tactics and coaching. If you want Justin's perspective as a professional, being in that locker room, in that day-to-day, Justin's got it for you. You can always get at us on social media. That's all right. Or drop us a note in the mailbag. Speaking of the mailbag,
you've got mail.
We've kind of already been doing mailbag questions, Justin, but now we're going to go a bit more rapid fire because we're already over an hour and I got about 15 minutes before I have to take my daughter to climbing. So our first question comes from Stephen Wood. What kind of difference would Justin Hoyte make if he were playing in the current roster? So Justin, besides the obvious difference of locking down that right side defensively and getting forward to create buckets of goals with amazing crosses, if you were a veteran player on this team in that locker room, what would you be doing or saying to your teammates to make a difference?
Just leadership, just being more vocal, being the leader at the back, being more vocal on the field. And I'd be the organizer. I would say I was an organizer when I was part of the USL team, and I'd be the organizer to help the midfield, make sure the central two are organized and make sure the back three is a unit and together, and also making sure that someone's stretching the field so we can get Lucho on the ball.
Yeah, I love that, Justin. I wish you were there. Honestly, I do. I think we need that presence. Jose got in touch and says, in listening to Pat Noonan's post-game press conference, at times it seemed like he was in denial of the state of the team in terms of performance. Some of his comments made me raise an eyebrow, or am I reading too much into it? Justin, the backstory is that Pat came out and kind of did the thing that coaches do, where instead of saying, we're not good enough, he said, we're showing a lot of good things, but just not getting results. And to me, Justin, that means he is seeing that the team is lacking confidence, that the locker room is depressed, that there's not joy. And so he's using coach speak to try to build this team up a little bit. I think that Pat Noonan knows the team is struggling, but criticizing them has not been working. I don't think he's traditional. I just think he's trying something different. Do you concur?
Yeah, I feel that's right. But like I'd say to the great question is, the only way you gain that is by winning games. When you're losing games, everything is unhappy, everything is heightened, everything is blown out of proportion. Yes, sometimes the team does play well, they make mistakes and you lose games. Now we're looking at it in a different way. If we would have won that game and still made the mistakes, we would have been looking at it differently. I feel he's come out and said the right thing. And when you are losing, everything's against you. And it is never a happy place when you're losing. Fans aren't happy. So the players are definitely not going to be happy they're losing. Especially 4 games unbeaten, 4 games losing, you're not going to be happy at all.
Yeah, Pep Guardiola is the master of this coach speak. His team will come out and lose, and he'll be like, "Oh, we played pretty well. It's the referee or the other," and then they'll come out.
Yeah, he's amazing.
4-0. Terrible performance. Wasn't good enough. Keeping his guys motivated. All right, Justin. The next question comes from Bill Hardy, who wants to know: has Assad shown enough to be a starter on the left with Orishano either on the right or maybe up top? Justin, should Assad be starting for this team for you?
Only if you put Orishano up top. If not, Orishano is going to be on the left.
Okay, I love that answer, because this is what I said. When we were talking about fixable problems and I talked about maybe emphasizing the defense, I agree with you completely. What I have here in my notes is you can start Assad, but not if Orishano is also starting, because having Assad on the left and Orishano on the right is just a recipe for disaster.
No, you can't have both. You can't have both. You can't have both.
Exactly. So I love that. Yes, bring in Assad, start Orishano up top. I think we solve that problem. Mike Prentice wants to know if we can fix only one thing, whether it's tactical, mental, or performance related before the postseason, what would give the team the best chance of making a deep run? I'll go forward, Justin. I think, to me, when you say if FCC can fix one thing, it depends on whether you're talking like a magic wand sort of fix or like a coach can fix this sort of thing. If it's a magic wand, I would see wave the wand and make Lucho fit and healthy and having fun. Because when Lucho is
having fun,
this team can literally beat anyone. If it's a thing that I think the coach could actually make a change. I'm not going to talk about a tactical or a formation change like I talked about last week. You weren't even here to criticize me for that, Justin, because I talked about the team playing 3-4-3. I won't do that to you. I think more realistically, shore up that defense. Let the offense fall where it will. Don't play two attacking wingbacks. Make sure, if you do play attacking wingbacks, that the flanks are well accounted for so that both players don't go forward at the same time. If you play Assad on the left and Yedlin on the right, make sure both the players aren't cut up the field at the same time, and then tell Obi or Buka that when one of those guys goes, they have to shade to that side of the field. So you can't have Assad bombing forward on the left or checking into the midfield from the left and also have Buka and Obi sitting in the center. One of those guys has to drop to the left a little bit so he's there for the counterattack. What about you, Justin? If you think if FCC could fix only one thing, what would you pick?
I'd pick mental. Why I'd say mental is because I feel like they're in the mental slump at the minute of losing games.
Yeah.
And they need to change their mindset to how they was last season, where everything was good, everything was going well, there was winning games left, right, and center. So, confidence is high. I feel like at the minute, the team's confidence and team's mindset is negative because they're losing games. I feel if you win the next game and win the first playoff game, I feel your confidence is back up and they're ready to go. And I feel at the minute, mentally, I just feel that they're negative. I feel there's too much negative thoughts within the team at the minute. And I feel that needs to change. And I feel that if that changes, I feel we'll be a much better team. Because I feel last season there was no negative thoughts at all. It was all positive. Everything was going perfectly well.
I love that, Justin. And, speaking of that, our next question plays into that perfectly, because Brett Sova says, how would you use the international break to get this team right for the playoffs? And I think Brett's mostly talking about mentally, because he says, would you do vacation time, tougher practices, extracurriculars as a team, something else? Justin, you've been there. What have teams that you've been part of, coaching staffs that you've been playing under, done during these sorts of times where you have a break in between games to get the team back to joyful and having fun?
Sometimes the coaches have literally just said, just take time away from the club. And sometimes that's all you need. I feel like if you have time away from the club, try not think about anything to do with the club. Try forget about anything that's gone on in the past, and only start thinking about it again when you come back. I feel you come back with a fresh mind, a positive energy, and a positive vibe to be ready to go. And I feel sometimes, a lot of the times, coaches have literally been get away for 3 days. Get away from here, get away from the environment, come away from the club. It's been a long season. A lot has gone on. There's been a lot of chopping and changing. Get away if you can, or if not, be home with your family and just have that quality time and just, recharge your batteries and be ready that your mindset is right. The next week, the next day we're back into work and we're ready to go and we're ready to put everything behind us and let's move forward into playoffs and let's get on this playoff run.
I think that's a great answer, Justin. I will add, I would mix in at least one non-soccer activity for the team that is relevant. U.S.
done that, yeah.
national team coach Emma Hayes had them watch a documentary about an ultra marathoner as a way of talking about suffering through exhaustion and compartmentalizing pain. You could do something like
I know
that.
someone who's doing that.
There's in Remember the Titans, the football coach takes his team to Gettysburg Civil War battle.
What a movie.
To talk about unity. I don't know, find something. But something that reminds the team of a core value that you already have, whether it's teamwork, unity, effort, focus, compartmentalizing pain and pushing through whatever that is, make that happen. All right, Justin, last question, more of a topic, comes from Rupesh, because Rupesh says, give us the reason for hope. Justin, you are a man of the people. You are always the one. FCC will finish first. FCC can win it all. You are the man of the people. Give the people some hope, Justin. Give us the reason why FCC makes a deep run into the playoffs or maybe even wins it all.
Look what position they are in, coach. Look how this season's gone. Look how many injuries they've got or had. Look how many chops and changes they've had. Look, everything has gone against the team. And all in all, look how they've performed. Look where they are in the league. Look where they are in the table. Look how they've been performing. And they're still third. I mean, for a team who, yes, you will support a Shield, you haven't won it this year, but for a team who've suffered so much this season, to be in the position they are in is quite remarkable. So they've achieved something great that we shouldn't overlook. Now going into the playoffs, we've got players back from injury. We've got, players getting up to form. We've got, I would say, an 11 that I feel that, the coach probably knows who he's going to start. I feel now is the time that the players can hit a bit of form going into the playoffs and have that deep run and really put behind, which has been a tough season, and really go for a run for it. And I feel that is possible within this next game and in the playoffs, because as you know, all you need to do is get into the playoffs and anything's possible. So I feel you get this team into the playoffs, and I feel that you've got players that have been are match winners. And I feel in a playoff situation and in certain games, we've got match winners in that team. So I feel like once we get into the playoffs, we'll be okay and we'll be ready for it. And I'm sure the fans will be. And that's all they want is a home game. Yeah,
a testament that anything could happen, Justin. This little tiny podcast got the one and only Justin freaking Hoyte to join the team. Thanks for doing it.
No, I had to. Anytime, coach, I had to. Anytime you ask me, I'm always available. We talk anything about the team, coach. I'm always up for it. So anytime.
And that is it for this episode of Talking Tactics with Coach Gough. If you want to do us a huge favor, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast or the YouTube or both. Head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/Coach Apple Podcast to rate and review the show and spread the word. Other than that, thank you for listening. Thanks to my co-host Justin Hoyte, and thanks as always to producer Mike for making this show audible. I had fun today, and I'm hoping you did too. This is Coach Brad Gough reminding you that soccer is a privilege. So whether watching, coaching, or playing, don't forget to smile.